This is a street in central Rome, and this, a residential area in Naples. What you're seeing isn't a freak accident or Photoshop, it's just what they look like. Now, I'm not calling these cities garbage or anything. Rome and Naples are synonymous with beauty and charm, but they have one big problem: trash. Next to rolling hills, cobblestone streets, and UNESCO World Heritage sites, you've got giant piles of waste. And yes, it's pretty bad. Imagine 4.3 million people producing 2,700 tons of non-recyclable trash every day. It doesn't sound too awful, until you realize that most of it ends up in overflowing garbage bins, on sidewalks, or in many illegal dump sites. Clearly, there's a gap here. In some parts of Rome, it's gotten so bad that the smell of rotting, overflowing trash has attracted nearby wildlife. In 2022, over 23,000 wild boar wandered from the surrounding forests into Rome's city streets in search of food from these garbage bins. The situation in Campania is worse. With 5.8 million residents, Campania has an embarrassing 5,000 dump sites littered across 55 communities. If you're trying to wrap your head around what that looks like, check this out. This is Campania, and these brown dots represent potentially polluted dump sites across the region. As you can see, the provinces of Naples and Caserta are the most concentrated. Then, if you zoom out a bit, you have a triangle of death. And no, I'm not talking about the Bermuda Triangle, but rather this area just 15 miles northeast of the city of Naples, comprising the towns of Acera, Nola, and Marigliano. It's one of Europe's largest illegal waste dumps, and at one point the largest. You can guess why it's called the Triangle of Death. It also has the nickname Land of Fires, if that's not dramatic enough, due to the tons of literal dumpster fires littered across it. So, southern Italy is drowning in trash. But none of this is random, and much like Singapore and Rwanda, it is reversible. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither were its trash issues. In fact, Italy's garbage woes can be tied to 3 words: illegal waste trafficking. Both the nation's capital and its third most populated city has been plagued with waste mismanagement that's resulted in some dire consequences. And they've been a long time coming. But to understand what can be done about this, we've got to look at how it got so bad in the first place. It all started in the late 80s when organized crime families, industrialists, and local politicians saw a gap in public waste management and jumped on it. In Campania, the head of this plan was the Camorra family, basically Naples' mafia overlords. They took charge of collecting and disposing hazardous waste, most of it from northern Italy, at a lower cost to industries and businesses. And where did they decide was the perfect dump site? Campania. It was that easy, mostly because Campania was a poorer, less developed farming region. So basically, they could just dump the stuff anywhere. And yes, I mean anywhere. Quarries, countryside fields, caves, and even the Mediterranean. The operation got so big that trash from other European countries was being shipped in, and for cheap too. Dumping toxic trash the right way would cost 21 to 62 cents per kilo, while with the mob, for only 9 to 10 cents per kilo, people's waste problems would disappear. Just pay the mob tax, and they'll take care of the public officials and legal hassles with some good old bribery. They'd also use the cash to keep proper toxic waste disposal facilities weak and confused via typical mob tactics of intimidation and accidental fires at official management sites. Garbage collection became more lucrative than the drug trade, with Italy's mobsters making anywhere from 8 to 16 billion euros a year. But this mafia heaven couldn't last forever, and by 1994, things had reached a tipping point. Campania's government tried to turn the tide by declaring a state of emergency and appointing a special commissioner with the fancy title of Extraordinary Commissary for the Waste Emergency to create a waste plan. Several commissioners and some well-meaning laws that sought to criminalize trash burning and mafia relations came and went. Needless to say, the same corruption issues that started this whole affair got in the way. The 90s were just as wild for Rome, as waste collection in the capital shifted from a house-to-house system, where trash was brought out on a specific day of the week, to a city council-based system that meant dumping trash in large dumpsters on the streets. Those giant dumpsters quickly filled up, creating unsightly messes on the street. Mix that with excessive dumping, especially from businesses, and add a lack of dumpsters during this major shift and some disorganized collection methods, and you've got the mess we see today. But Italy's garbage disaster isn't about frustrated citizens, an unhinged mafia, and a reluctant government. If you've ever visited Italy, you may have contributed to the trash crisis. Tourism plays a heavy part in how much rubbish these cities have to manage. Overall, Italy sees around 65 million international tourists yearly, making it the 3rd most visited country in Europe and the 5th most visited globally, with 10 million tourists visiting the capital and 2 million visiting Naples. The already strained waste systems suffer. For starters, tourists are less likely to properly dispose of trash while touring key attractions, and locals have complained about discarded cigarettes, beer bottles, and food wrappers near sites like the Trevi Fountain. Tourists also increase the waste generated at local restaurants, hotels, and businesses. And with a system that's already backed up, these business owners see their dumpsters overflow even faster. To add to that, the Malagrota landfill, Europe's largest at the time and Rome's main garbage disposal site, was shut down in 2013 for contaminating the city's water table and failing to meet EU standards. This means that the collected trash from locals and visitors had very few places to go. In Campania, nearly 17 trash-burning fires occurred daily by 2009, and in 2019, around 70 illegal waste fires were reported between Naples and the city of Caserta in the span of 2 days. Looking into the damage, Italian NGO Legambiente estimated that from 1992 to 2014, over 410,000 trucks carrying trash from northern Italy and Greater Europe made Campania their dump site. That's 10 million tons of toxic waste being burned and dumped across the south. When you add the health statistics, things are just as alarming. Reports from Italy's National Health Institute in 2015 pointed towards a link between Campania's illegal waste dumping and increased cancer, leukemia, birth defects, and lower life expectancy rates. For Acera, a town within the Triangle of Death, it has increased cancer rates by 30%. So how can southern Italy really crawl out of this landfill-sized mess? Well, this is the Santa Palomba incinerator, a state-of-the-art waste processing facility that will cover 10 acres and process 600,000 tons of waste into energy. This means Italy's neighborhoods can be powered by the very thing that was drowning them. Its construction would not eat into public funds and would decrease rubbish collection charges for Rome's citizens, who pay some of the highest trash collection taxes in the world. There's just one problem. The incinerator won't be ready until 2026. But there have been other options, and Rome didn't have to look far. This is where the Netherlands come in. You see, it's clear that Italy cannot tackle the issue on its own, but one city's trash is another's treasure. In April 2023, Rome began exporting 900 tons of trash to Amsterdam weekly. That's right, trash is an export, and it's big business. This time, however, Rome will be paying for this service, which will come at a heavy cost. 100 to 180 million euros a year to be exact. But this will let the city breathe a bit, so it's worth it. The trash will be securely packaged and hauled into 16 train wagons traveling 1,000 miles to Amsterdam. Now, the 900 tons doesn't cover the 1,200 tons needed to reset Rome's streets in good time, but it's a start. And despite all this, Rome is still currently able to recycle about 43% of its total waste, which is still considerably less than the national average of 63%, but will help. Once the trash arrives at its destination, it will be processed in an incinerator that converts trash to energy and will contribute to heating 30,000 homes in the city. With these plans in place, it will still take some time for Rome and Campania to slowly crawl out of the disaster created decades ago, but they look closer to the goal than before. There's still one gigantic elephant in the room though that needs to work, and that is Rome's economy and government. The truth is, no matter how much trash makes its way to Amsterdam or is incinerated in a high-tech facility, things won't happen overnight. Any country needs a reliable, stable government and secure citizens to thrive. It will take collective efforts from citizens, government officials, and fellow EU allies, but only time will tell if a cleaner Italy will be the end result, or whether it's nothing but wishful thinking.